Hey everybody, what's up? Stingray here again, and a few days ago, out of nowhere, Hypixel Studios has dropped the trailer to Hytale, their own game. So, Hypixel Studios is a game development studio that has been founded by the Hypixel server network, which is of course the most successful server in Minecraft history. And they were just like, you know what? I think we can do this better. We're gonna make our own thing. And yeah, that takes some balls, but apparently they didn't do a bad job of it, because that trailer just looked amazing. There have been quite a few YouTubers, big and small, already doing their opinion videos or oh, this thing has come out videos basically. And my opinion about it is, well, I'm hyped, but I don't want to just talk about this just being like, oh, I'm so hyped for this, but I thought, you know what, I could make a complete detailed trailer analysis. So that's what we're doing right now. So without further ado, let's hop into it. So we're opening with this beautiful shot here, and right from the get-go you can see the similarities to Minecraft and how it's inspired by Minecraft. For one, obviously it is blocky, which is not that big of a surprise, but even when you look at the terrain here on the side, you can see that it looks very close to how Minecraft generates terrain. But on the flip side, you have these huge mountains here, which are generated completely different from what Minecraft generates, right? So it is very similar to Minecraft's terrain generation in some ways, but very different in other ways, which is a good mix, I guess. It's familiar, but different, but, you know, providing something new as well. You can see in the background that there's this bridge ruin here, and also this other ruin even further in the background. And this is nice, because it indicates that there will be quite a few generated structures, like ruins and, you know, buildings, whatever, right? Quite a few generated structures in the world, which is pretty awesome because it makes the world by itself, like even without mobs, without players, without anything, it makes the world by itself feel more alive or more lived in, let's say, right? And that's generally a good thing. It makes for some really interesting exploration, not just some empty natural, not just empty nature basically, but some interesting places to explore. We can also see some birds, and this is something that we'll see throughout the trailer. The whole world just feels alive. There are so many animals and stuff like that going around, and the whole world just feels so much more alive than Minecraft does. In the foreground we can see that we have this animated campfire, which looks pretty good by itself, but we can also see that there are some people sitting around, some players sitting and standing around the campfire, which could indicate that there could be some system where you regenerate health or stamina or something like that by just sitting at a campfire. You can also see this one person is holding some food in his hands, like roasting the food above the campfire. We can also see a bunch of items just laying around on the floor and even leaning on this log here. And I'm not 100% sure if this is actually in-game or just some trailer trickery, but we are going to encounter this later in the trailer quite a few times as well, so that indicates that this actually works in game, which would be pretty amazing. We're also getting a hint at the plethora of items that this game appears to have. We can see at least 2 different types of swords, both of which appear to be made from metal, so maybe different kinds of different types of swords, right? Not just different materials, but also different shapes, different properties and stuff. We can also see a shield, potions, a backpack. We can see that there are mage staffs, which will be pretty interesting. And we can even see a music instrument on the side here. Next up, we have this chase scene between a rabbit and a fox. Now, this chase scene is one of those things where I'm once again not sure if it is actually in-game or if it is once again some trailer trickery. But if it is in-game, it would mean that animal interaction is way more involved than it is in Minecraft. And oh boy, is there a lot going on in this scene. So this is basically a farming scene, pretty obviously, And right at the very beginning of the scene, we can see this card, which looks like it's a usable card. Like it's not just like a decorative block, but like you can actually ride on it, which would be pretty neat. Some ground vehicle, right? Um, in terms of the farm, we can actually see that there are multiple plants, quite a lot of plants that you can farm, that is. So we can see some pumpkins, some wheat, some cotton, which will be pretty interesting, some sunflowers, eggplants, cabbage, and cauliflower. So that's quite the assortment of plants that you can farm, and I'm relatively sure that this is not all of it. In the background, we have this little cottage, and here we can see that it actually has some sort of thatch roof, which is really neat. It's something that Minecrafters are asking for like crazy, and here we apparently have them. We can also see that there is some form of glass pane. At the very top here, we can see that these windows are not flush with the walls, but they're actually recessed like, like glass panes. And when you look at these doors, they actually look like they are also in the middle of the blocks and not on one edge. We can also see an arrow sign right here next to the building, and this indicates that, well, we won't just get the normal rectangular signs, but also getting, different kinds of signs. We can also see that the grass has different textures. There's at least one light and one darker texture to the grass, which could be different blocks, but it could also just be randomized depending on the position of the block. We can also see, if we look to the path here, that we actually have some, some rough-ish texture transitions and not a straight block line. So this is a bit of a close-up of the farming scene, and first of all, we can see this scarecrow, which could be just decorative, but it could also indicate that you would actually need them to protect your fields from, crows and stuff to pick apart your plants. In any case, we can't tell really, but would be an interesting thought. Other than that, we can see this guy watering the plants here, and it's not exactly clear if it's necessary to water the plants or if it just gives them a boost, or if in this case it would be necessary because you can tell from the previous scene that there is no water source. So it could be that you can actually use some irrigation system to water your crops and not having to water them with a watering can, but you certainly do have the option to use a watering can. Here we can see that the fences have their planks being on one side of the fence post rather than in the middle, which I'm curious as to how that will be implemented, as to how the building mechanic for that will work. Because the game will need to know somehow on which side the planks need to go. We can also see that there's a different kind of fence in the background, so different kinds of fences apparently, which is also an interesting thing. We can see that this person here eating a carrot and actually sitting on this block, which appears to be just a normal full block, so that indicates that it is actually possible to sit on full blocks, which would be really interesting if you could really sit on any block, right? You can see there's a furnace there. We don't really see any interaction with it, but it certainly looks nice. We can also see a barrel next to it, which we don't know the use of it, but it's there. And we can see that this person is actually carrying a log. Now this could just be some visual thing for the trailer again, but it could indicate that maybe you can't put everything into your inventory, and that some things just have to be carried like that. That would certainly be a possibility. Here we have another better look at the fences, and we can also see that there are chicken and fledglings, so you can actually apparently breed animals. We can also see that on this log we have a sleeping dog, which is pretty cute, and again it fits into this whole world just feeling way more alive than Minecraft does. We can also see this weird angled roof here, which makes me curious as to how that is done. Maybe this chicken hut thing is just a single block that you can build, although I have to say I would consider that rather boring. But we will see about that. We can see some hay bales over here, and we can also see some benches over here, which we'll actually get back to a bit later, because they will come up again. Here we can see that the blocks actually have a wobbling animation when you hit them, which is not exactly the most realistic thing in the world, but it certainly does fit very well into the stylized theme of the game. We can also see that it has a very similar cracking overlay texture, similar to Minecraft. Ores are apparently sticking out of their blocks instead of just being a different texture on top of the stone texture. And we can also see that there are some rocks laying around which appear to be their own block. It doesn't seem like they are sticking out of the block like the ore is, but that they are actually their own block. Now this is a very interesting and very useful shot, because this is an interior shot which demonstrates quite a lot of how the crafting will apparently work and what you can do on the inside of your base, right? So starting all the way on the right here, we can see that for one, we have more weapons laying on the wall like this, or leaning on the wall rather. So this is an indicator that this is in fact in-game, which would be pretty amazing. Right next to that we can see this coal forge. These are basically just pits with burning coal in them, where you just put the steel right under the surface of the burning coal to heat it up. And right next to that we have an anvil, another anvil, and we actually have this guy doing some crafting here, and you can see that it actually has this kind of hammer swinging animation. Now, I'm not 100% sure if this is in-game, because this animation by itself would not be a problem to implement, right? That would be really easy to do, and kind of cool, to be honest. But when we continue, we can actually see him turn around and look at the sword like that. And I'm not sure if that's really in-game or if that's just some trailer trickery, right? In any case, looks very interesting. And yeah, we can also see a lot of furniture in here. So the first thing that we can see is the chair, and we'll see later in the trailer that you can actually sit on them. So yeah, you can sit on furniture. Yay! Yeah, we have some sort of desk before the chair. And I'm not sure what this is used for, but we can see that there's some sort of paper or cloth on top of it, and on top of that we have another hammer. So this could be just a generic crafting table, which I would say that looks way better than the Minecraft one. Right next to that we can see a chest, and if you look closely you can see that this is actually a 2-block chest, so we can just make a wide chest by putting two together, by putting two chests right next to each other, just like we can do in Minecraft. Right next to that we have a flower pot, which is rather interesting, because in Minecraft we have these small clay pots, and here we have this really big, massive, wooden, almost barrel-like flower pot, right? And that's really cool. And this looks to be some sort of potion brewing specific table, right? We can see this girl here doing some potion brewing, which also has a pretty neat animation. And this, I'm not sure, but this table in front of her certainly looks like it's specifically made for potion brewing. We can certainly see another potion standing on there, although not sure if that could be actually put there as an item, or if that's part of the table mesh, of the table model, right? And then in the back we can also see this sort of little shelf with these tiny, it looks like tiny bottles with some ingredients or whatever. And then on the very left we can see this thing, which looks to be like a cooking stove. On top of it we can see there's this pot, this cooking pot, and inside of it there's something. It's not exactly clear what it is. It could be food, but from its color, from its vibrant blue color, it could be an actual potion ingredient that's brewing in there. And that would be pretty cool, because that would mean that you would actually have to cook potion ingredients to then mix into potions, or something like that. And that would be pretty amazing. I'm not sure, I don't know if it does work that way, but it would be cool, right? Then next to that we have this cutting board, which indicates that you actually cut stuff, like that you have to cut food to process it. This is really cool. It reminds me of Pan's Craft, to be honest. On the walls, we can see that there is some sort of tool rack standing behind the anvil. And yes, that is actually standing behind the anvil, it looks like. At first glance, I thought it's like hanging on the wall above the anvil, which wouldn't be very interesting by itself. But when you look closely, it actually looks very much like it's standing behind the anvil, which indicates some rather interesting building system. So I guess that's something to keep an eye on. Above that, we can see some bookshelves, which appear to be purely decorative. As you can see, they all have the same books in the same order, so it doesn't seem like you can actually put books in there, which is a bit of a shame, but, you know, it's fine. you need some decorative items as well, I guess. There's also multiple types of general item shelves, I would assume. We can see that there are always some sort of vases in there, probably potions, I'm not sure. But I assume that in most of them are not exclusive to potions or something, but that in most of them you can just put anything in there, right? And yeah, apart from that, in the foreground we can actually see this, which very clearly seems to be some sort of writing table. We can see that there's this paper and the little ink bottle with the feather in it, so that's pretty clearly some sort of writing table. What you can write? Who knows? Maybe you can draw maps, that would be pretty interesting. Or it's just for actually like writing notes or something. That would also be pretty cool. At this time, we don't know. We only know that that is there. And off to adventuring we go. So here we can see that this one player is actually carrying the backpack that we saw in the very first shot. And we can see that the other players are actually carrying a quiver and holding a bow in their hand. We can also see that we have dynamic lights from light sources that you are holding in your hand. We have some glowing mushrooms and some blue-leafed trees here, which really reminds me of the magical forest biomes from Stormcraft. So if something like this is actually implemented into the main game, that would be really interesting. This is apparently a jungle biome, and we can see some sort of jungle cottage here, which I'm not sure if that is a generated structure, or if that is just a build player base. I'm not sure about that. Could be either. We can see a little monkey over here, and interestingly, when we take a look at the top, that is very clearly the rooftop of a cave. We can see some glowing mushrooms or glowing stones up here, some stalactites, and what appears to be a skylight. So, underground jungle biome? Here we have some sort of large oak forest. And we can see that there are some lanterns, and we have some cattails here. And over here we have this leaf guy or whatever. And I actually didn't find anything about this in the concept art, but maybe I just missed it. But in any case, we will go into the concept art in another video anyway. In this ice biome we can see polar bears. And we can also see water ice, which appears to be working pretty much exactly the same way as it does in Minecraft. As for the snow, this could be snow layers, but I'm not too sure about this. This could very well also be full snow blocks, or just a different block state for these grass or dirt blocks that these would then be. This seems to be a blend between savanna and mesa. We can see some of the acacia trees in the background, which look very similar to the Minecraft ones. We can see some cacti in the foreground, and we can see some palm trees down below. We can also see some gazelles or something similar galloping down in the canyon. This looks nasty, doesn't it? We have this desert scene with this structure in the background, which is probably some sort of temple or dungeon. In the foreground we also have these huge critter enemies, and we also have these huge wasps. So this is the first part of the combat scene with this ogre enemy. Now, in the scene we see the third person view, and we can see right off the bat that, contrary to Minecraft, the third person camera in Hytale is offset to the side, which definitely makes it more usable than it is in Minecraft, where you really don't see what's in front of you. You can see that it's possible to dodge attacks because, as you can see, the attack actually has a proper attack swing. Contrary to Minecraft, where you're really just taking damage upon contact with the enemy, right? Take zombies, you run into a zombie, you take damage. Here, that's different. Here you actually have an attack swing, and that attack swing appears to have the damage hitbox. In the second part, we can see the first person view, and we can see that the player is blocking attacks with the shield. And we can also see that the attacks have this streak behind them, which just shows the path that the weapon is taking, which just makes the whole thing feel more alive. And if they did it well, then this is actually the hitbox of the attack, which would mean that you would be able to very narrowly avoid the swing. Okay, here we have this building scene, which is separated into 4 stages. And here in the first stage, we can see that there are some thin logs, and we can also see that this person is jumping on the log that they are placing, which means that these logs are not acting like fences. They are not 1.5 blocks high, they are only 1 block high. They are normal blocks, they don't act like fences. And we can also once again see someone sitting at the campfire right here. In the second shot, we can see that we have some tall torches here, which could just be torches on top of a fence block or something, but it could also be its own block. We can also see that there appears to be yet another type of furnace back behind this person here. In the third stage, we can see we have some shingled roofs, and if you take a look at the blocks right here, these appear to be vertical slabs. In the last stage, we have another better look at the vertical slabs right here, and we can also see there are some archery targets down here. And importantly, of course, I cannot forget this, we have a hot air balloon apparently, so yeah. So here we can see this guy holding a flaming sword, and this begs the question, does the game have elemental swords in that sense for every single element, right? Like an ice sword, for example, as well. We can also see that we have this ice boss here that throws boulders at the player, but from the footage it looks very much like those aren't actual blocks ripped out of the ground, but it just seems to spawn that thing in, right? There's no hole in the ground where he picked that boulder up. Next up we have this tropical island, and if you look at the ocean floor, you can see it looks very similar to the Minecraft ocean floor post update Aquatic. Here we can see this dude fishing from his boat, and in the foreground here we can see a ton of items laying around, which is another indication that the ability to just throw items on the ground may actually be in the game. Here we see this player diving, and he appears to be wearing some sort of scuba gear apparently. Apart from that, we can also have a better look at all the underwater plants and animal life, which looks really vibrant. On this shipwreck, we can also see that there are diagonal ropes, and these appear to be possible to attach to each other, that is, to vertical or horizontal versions of the rope. Going underground now, we have this minecart scene, and we can see that apparently ice and snow can extend underground. We can see some icicles on the roof, some ice crystals on the floor. We can also see the skull sign, which indicates that either there are certain special signs that you can craft, or that you can actually have signs where you can add in images similar to how banners work in Minecraft. Here we see several different types of crystals on the back wall. My guess would be sapphire, ruby, and emerald, but who knows, could be different things. We also have some bats here, and we can see this guy with the minecart jump. But I actually find it unlikely that this will actually be in the game. I'm fairly certain that this is just trailer trickery. Here we have what appears to be a dungeon entrance, and we can see that at least these doors have an opening animation. Here we have multiple enemies. We can see one enemy has some sort of iron spiked club, and another enemy has some lit explosives carrying on his back. We can also see this one enemy just falling off of this damaged bridge. So maybe it's possible that enemies will just blindly charge at, or some enemies will just blindly charge at you without considering their environment. So in this boss scene we can see a fire staff being used, and we can also see it being used in a spin attack. Defeating one of these bosses apparently rewards you with a loot chest with some goodies in them. I'm not too sure if this face animation is in the game, Could be some trailer trickery, but who knows, really. So this is basically the Hytale version of the Hypixel lobby, and here we can see that there are some people actually sitting on chairs at tables and eating stuff, that's on the table. Um, we can also see some thin sheets making some sunshades here. We have some timber blocks in the buildings, half timber blocks in the buildings, that is. And we can see portal blocks in the portal up here. And I assume that these are not modded, but I'm not sure. In this shot, we can see some more players sitting at tables, in this case with some mugs. And we can see this player having some sort of flying rotation thingy. I don't know what to call it, but it's a thing, apparently. Here we have a better look at the thin sheet blocks and a better look at the sitting animation. Here we have an even better view of people appearing to eat at tables. In the background we can see some statues with projections on their base stones. I'm not sure if these are just decorative or if they serve some form of function. The trailer doesn't really give us that information. On the wall we can see some ragged banners, which I'm pretty interested in how those will be created by the player. The next few shots show off the minigames that they will have on their official server. We can definitely see Sky Wars, survival games, and Mega Wars. Other than that, these shots are not too interesting, but we can see the crossbow being used here. Here in the modding demo we can see what looks to be like a modded strategy, tower defense, or MOBA game. We can see these players with laser weapons that are probably modded in as well. Here we can see an animation tool that will apparently come with the game, although I don't think that this will actually be in-game, but that it will be rather shipped as a separate tool. Here we see some more leaf people, and we can also see this hostile golem in the middle. And looking at the plants and the grass and everything, this looks very much like it is a different biome. And it looks to me a bit like Terraria's Corruption, or like Stormcraft's Tainted Lands. Here we have either the UI for a questlog item or simply a questlog menu. We can see it has an integrated minimap with marker functionality. And on the side we can see there are different types of preset markers. And one interesting one is the world gate marker, which could indicate that you can travel to different worlds. To what extent these worlds will be closed off or open world, well, the trailer doesn't give us any information about that. Next up we see the character creator, and this one is not that special by itself. I mean, it's a character creator, what do you expect? But it looks pretty neat. But what's really interesting is the navigation bar at the top, because that gives us a few hints about how the game will work. So the first tab that we see is Adventure. That's probably single player, adventure, survival RPG type of thing, right? We can see a minigames tab right next to that, which could indicate that the minigames we saw earlier are not exclusively on the Hytale server, but are available for everybody, or on some sort of server that's separate from the Hypixel server. Or it is just a shortcut to the official Hypixel server, but we can't really tell from this shot. The next tab is the Servers tab, which indicates that there will be a public server list, right? So even if you create a private server, you can probably apply somewhere to have your server appear publicly on that list. And the last interesting thing that we can see is that there is a chat function in the menu and an in-game friends function. If there really is an in-game video player, as this clip suggests, then it will be interesting if and how we will be able to upload videos, because if they don't want weird and dangerous things to happen, they need some form of moderation as to what content can be uploaded. Here we can see that apparently quite a few features from World Edit and Voxel Sniper are being implemented into the main game, which would be incredibly amazing for people like map makers. Here we can see a movie creation scene, and I have to say, I don't think that this is how you would make movies in the game. I'm fairly sure that this whole camera setup with the computer and everything, I'm fairly sure that's just done for the trailer. These items may be in the game, but I'm fairly certain that the actual video creation doesn't work that way. I'm fairly certain that the video creation itself probably works something like the replay mode for Minecraft does. Here we can see these skeletons actually assembling from this pile of bones, which certainly looks way more interesting than just them popping into existence upon spawning. It is possible that this is just the case for certain scripted events like this boss fight that we're about to see, and that generally when enemies spawn they will just pop into existence. But it would be interesting to see if other enemies just in the open world also have some unique spawn animation. Here we can see this player smacking the skeleton with a shield. Not sure if this is just, again, trailer trickery or if this is actually a feature that is in-game. But if this is in-game, that would be pretty awesome. Here we can actually see an ice staff, and considering that we've already seen a fire staff before, we can assume that there will indeed be elemental magic staffs in the game for every element that the game has. And considering that we've already seen the fire sword, we can also assume that there will be elemental swords as well. And at last we have the dragon. It's certainly a boss, that one's pretty obvious, but it's not certain if it is the end boss, like the final boss of the storyline. Very well could be. A lot of people have been comparing it to the Ender Dragon from Minecraft, and there are some similarities, especially the pink fire magic stuff that it's shooting out of its mouth. But apart from that, the design is really different, so comparing these two is kinda far-fetched in my opinion. And that's about it for this trailer analysis. I will be making some more Hytale videos in the future, so you can look forward to that. And apart from that, tell me, what do you think about Hytale? Do you like the trailer? Are you as hyped as I am? Do you think it will dethrone Minecraft as the most popular game in the world? Leave me a comment, tell me your thoughts. Oh, and also, do you think I missed anything in the trailer? If so, definitely tell me as well. Apart from that, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you like my content, and especially subscribe to my channel if you want to see more Hytale related videos, since, as I said, I will make more in the near future. So, thanks for watching, see you next time, goodbye.